The scene opens on a car winding down a country road. The narration is calm, but with a subtle, building sense of unease. Narrator: it began, as these stories often do, with a dream. A dream of quiet mornings, of space to breathe, of leaving the noise of the city behind. For Emily and James, that dream seemed to have found a home. Quite literally. The old Henderson place, nestled in a rolling green valley, looked like it had been waiting for them. The real estate agent called it a handyman special, but to their eyes, it was perfect. A little worn, yes, but full of character and potential. The price was suspiciously low. But in their excitement, they chose to see it as fate, not a warning. The sound of a car door closing. Birds chirping. The creak of an old gate. Narrator: the first tour was under a bright, afternoon sun. They marveled at the high ceilings, the original hardwood floors, the way the light streamed through the dusty, lead-paned windows. Emily loved the large, if overgrown, garden. James was already imagining restoring the wraparound porch. The oddities were small, easy to dismiss. A cold spot in the main hallway. A portrait of a severe-looking former owner, whose eyes seemed to follow you. The real estate agent laughed it off. Old houses settle, she said. They have quirks. They signed the papers the next week. The sound of a key turning in a lock. The heavy groan of a front door opening. Narrator: the move itself was uneventful. But the first night, that's when the house began to speak. It started with the doors. James was certain he'd locked the back door before bed. Yet, at 3 in the morning, they were woken by the sound of it slamming shut in the wind, unlocked and wide open. Emily thought she must have been dreaming the faint, melodic humming that seemed to drift from the walls, a tune she didn't recognize, sung by a voice that was neither hers nor James's. The sound of a faint, eerie hum that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere, then cuts off abruptly. A door click-locking by itself. Narrator: days turned into a week, and the disturbances grew from quirks into a presence. Objects would vanish from one room only to reappear in another. The scent of old perfume, lavender and something metallic, would waft through a room and then vanish. One evening, as they sat reading by the fire, every door on the second floor slammed in unison, a thunderous, violent crash that shook the entire house. That was the end of pretending. Fear had moved in with them. James' voice tense, whispering, "You heard that too, right? That wasn't the wind." Emily, voice shaky, "There is no wind tonight, James." Narrator: determined not to be driven out by their own imaginations, they became investigators. James set up a voice recorder. Emily began researching the house's history at the local library. The cheerful librarian's face fell when Emily gave the address. The microfiche newspapers told a grim story. The Hendersons, 1985, vanished. Just gone. Dinner on the table, cars in the garage. The family before them, the Millers, 1962, disappeared during a birthday party. Streamers still hung from the ceiling when the police arrived. The original owners, the Blackwoods, back in 1890, vanished the week after they moved in. The house had a nickname in the archives, the Vortex Valley Disappearances. It had been abandoned for a decade before they'd bought it. The sound of rustling newspaper, a slow, ominous clock tick. Narrator: armed with this terrifying knowledge, they decided on one last, deliberate investigation. They would stay the night, actively seeking answers. They started in the basement, a place they'd avoided, a damp, earth-floored cellar that always felt watchful. As James tapped on the stone walls, one section didn't sound solid. It echoed with a hollow thud. With a crowbar and a lot of effort, they pried away the old, rotten wooden paneling behind the furnace, revealing a low, dark opening. A hidden room. The sound of a crowbar prying wood, stone grinding on stone. A gasp. The air that washed out was frigid and carried the faint, grave-like scent of damp soil and decay. James's flashlight beam cut through the darkness, illuminating a small, circular chamber. In the center was a simple wooden chair. And on the chair, perfectly preserved as if placed there yesterday, was a leather-bound journal. Soft, frantic breathing. The sound of a leather cover being opened, pages carefully turned. Narrator: the journal belonged to Eleanor Blackwood, the wife of the original owner. Her handwriting started neat and hopeful, describing the land, their plans. But it quickly deteriorated into a frantic, terrified scrawl. Emily, reading aloud, voice a trembling whisper, October 12, 1890. Thomas thinks I am mad. But the earth is unhappy. We disturbed it. We built our foundation over what should have been left to rest. The men who cleared the land spoke of old markers, stones arranged in circles, but Thomas dismissed them as farmers' tales. Narrator: she wrote of whispers in the night that didn't come from the wind. Of shadows that moved with purpose. Of a deep, compelling pull from the basement. Emily, reading, voice growing more desperate, October 29th. It calls to us. A song from the earth. It is not a melody of peace. It is a lament, a dirge of anger. It wants us to join it. To sleep in the cold, dark soil. Thomas, he's been standing in the cellar for hours, just staring at the wall. He says he can hear our name. Narrator: the final entry was a single, scribbled sentence, the ink blotted as if by a tear, or a drop of water from the cold stone above. Emily, voice barely audible, choked with fear, it is not a song. It is a hunger. And it is almost sated. Narrator: as the last word left Emily's lips, the single bare light bulb hanging in the basement hallway outside the hidden room flickered and died. The humming returned, but this time it wasn't faint. It was all around them, deep, resonant, and ancient. It wasn't in the walls. It was in the air itself. The beam of James's flashlight began to strobe wildly. James, shouting over the droning hum, Emily, run. Narrator: they scrambled out of the tiny room, not bothering to retrieve the journal, not looking back. The basement door at the top of the stairs began to swing shut on its own. They barely squeezed through as it slammed with incredible force. They didn't stop to pack. They didn't look back at the house. They fled to their car, the droning hum seeming to follow them out onto the road, only fading after they had driven miles away. The sound of a car engine roaring to life, tires screeching on gravel, then fading into the distance. A long silence, broken only by the chirping of crickets. Narrator: they never went back. They left everything behind. The house was eventually repossessed by the bank, but no one would buy it. It still stands there today, in that quiet valley, windows like sightless eyes staring out at the road. The mystery of the disappearing owners was never officially solved. But Emily and James knew. Some secrets are meant to stay buried. Some ground is sacred. And some hungers, once awakened, simply wait in the silence, behind the walls, under the floorboards, for the next dreamers to come knocking on the door. A final, faint echo of the eerie hum, then nothing but the sound of the wind.